The rise of Rome's most dangerous man. Julius Caesar. The divine lost his father when he was in the 16th year of his age, and the year following, being nominated to the office of high priest of Jupiter, he repudiated Cassutia, who was very wealthy, although her family belonged only to the equestrian order, and to whom he had been contracted when he was a mere boy. He then married Cornelia, the daughter of Cinna, who was 4 times consul, and had by her, shortly afterwards, a daughter named Julia. Resisting all the efforts of the dictator Sylla to induce him to divorce Cornelia, he suffered the penalty of being stripped of his sacerdotal office, his wife's dowry, and his own patrimonial estates, and, being identified with the adverse faction, was compelled to withdraw from Rome. After changing his place of concealment nearly every night, although he was suffering from a quartan ague, and having effected his release by bribing the officers who had tracked his footsteps, he at length obtained a pardon through the intercession of the Vestal Virgins, and of Mammicus Aemilius and Aurelius Cotta, his near relatives. We are assured that when Sylla, having withstood for a while the entreaties of his own best friends, persons of distinguished rank, at last yielded to their importunity, he exclaimed either by a divine impulse, or from a shrewd conjecture, "Your suit is granted, and you may take him among you. But know," he added, "that this man, for whose safety you are so extremely anxious, will, some day or other, be the ruin of the party of the nobles, in defense of which you are leagued with me. For in this one Caesar, you will find many a Marius." His first campaign was served in Asia, on the staff of the praetor, M. Thermus, and being dispatched into Bithynia, to bring a fleet thence, he loitered so long at the court of Nicomedes, as to give occasion to reports of a criminal intercourse between him and that prince, which received additional credit from his hasty return to Bithynia, under the pretext of recovering a debt due to a freedman, his client. The rest of his service was more favorable to his reputation, and when Mytilene was taken by storm, he was presented by Thermus with the civic crown. He also served in Cilicia, under Servilius Isauricus, but only for a short time, as upon receiving intelligence of Sylla's death, he returned with all speed to Rome, in expectation of what might follow from a fresh agitation set on foot by Marcus Lepidus. Distrusting, however, the abilities of this leader, and finding the times less favorable for the execution of this project than he had at first imagined, he abandoned all thoughts of joining Lepidus, although he received the most tempting offers. Soon after this civil discord was composed, he preferred a charge of extortion against Cornelius Dolabella, a man of consular dignity who had obtained the honor of a triumph. On the acquittal of the accused, he resolved to retire to Rhodes, with the view not only of avoiding the public odium which he had incurred, but of prosecuting his studies with leisure and tranquillity, under Apollonius, the son of Molon, at that time the most celebrated master of rhetoric. While on his voyage thither, in the winter season, he was taken by pirates near the island of Pharmacusa, and detained by them, burning with indignation, for nearly 40 days, his only attendants being a physician and 2 chamberlains. He had instantly dispatched his other servants and the friends who accompanied him, to raise money for his ransom. 50 talents having been paid down, he was landed on the coast, when, having collected some ships, he lost no time in putting to sea in pursuit of the pirates, and, having captured them, inflicted upon them the punishment with which he had often threatened them in jest. At that time, Mithridates was ravaging the neighboring districts, and on Caesar's arrival at Rhodes, that he might not appear to lie idle. At the same time, danger threatened the allies of Rome. He passed over into Asia, and having collected some auxiliary forces, and driven the king's governor out of the province, retained in their allegiance the cities which were wavering and ready to revolt. Having been elected military tribune, the first honor he received from the suffrages of the people after his return to Rome, he zealously assisted those who took measures for restoring the tribunician authority, which had been greatly diminished during the usurpation of Sylla. He likewise, by an act, which Plotinus at his suggestion, propounded to the people, obtained the recall of Lucius Cinna, his wife's brother, and others with him, who having been the adherents of Lepidus in the civil disturbances, had after that consul's death fled to Sertorius, which law he supported by a speech. During his quaestorship, he pronounced funeral orations from the rostra, according to custom, in praise of his aunt Julia and his wife Cornelia. In the panegyric on his aunt, he gives the following account of her own and his father's genealogy, on both sides. My aunt Julia derived her descent, by the mother, from a race of kings, and by her father, from the immortal gods. The Marci Regias, her mother's family, deduce their pedigree from Ancus Marcius, and the Julii, her fathers, from Venus, of which stock we are a branch. We therefore unite in our descent the sacred majesty of kings, the chiefest among men, and the divine majesty of gods, to whom kings themselves are subject. To supply the place of Cornelia, he married Pompeia, the daughter of Quintus Pompeius, and granddaughter of Lucius Sylla, but he afterward divorced her upon suspicion of Publius Clodius, have debauched her. For so current was the report that Clodius had found access to her disguised as a woman during the celebration of a religious solemnity, that the Senate instituted an inquiry respecting the profanation of the sacred rites. Father Spain fell to his lot as quaestor. When there, as he was going the circuit of the province, by commission from the praetor, for the administration of justice, and had reached Gades, seeing a statue of Alexander the Great in the temple of Hercules, he sighed deeply, as if weary of his sluggish life, for having performed no memorable actions at an age at which Alexander had already conquered the world. He therefore immediately sued for his discharge, with the view of embracing the first opportunity, which might present itself in the city, of entering upon a more exalted career. In the stillness of the night following, he dreamt that he lay with his own mother, but his confusion was relieved, and his hopes were raised to the highest pitch, by the interpreters of his dream, who expounded it as an omen that he should possess universal empire, for that the mother who in his sleep he had found submissive to his embraces, was no other than the earth, the common parent of all mankind. Quitting, therefore, the province before the expiration of the usual term, he betook himself to the Latin colonies, which were then eagerly agitating the design of obtaining the freedom of Rome. He would have stirred them up to some bold attempt, had not the consuls, to prevent any commotion, detained for some time the legions that had been raised for service in Cilicia. But this did not deter him from making, soon afterward, a still more significant effort within the precincts of the city itself. For, only a few days before he entered upon the aedileship, he incurred a suspicion of having engaged in a conspiracy with Marcus Crassus, a man of consular rank, to whom were joined Publius Sylla and Lucius Suetonius, who, after they had been chosen consuls, were convicted of bribery. The conspirators planned to fall upon the Senate at the opening of the new year, and murder as many of them as necessary, upon which Crassus was to assume the office of dictator and appoint Caesar his master of the horse. When the Commonwealth had been thus ordered according to their pleasure, the consulship was to have been restored to Sylla and Autronius. Mention is made of this plot by Tanucius Geminus in his history, by Marcus Bibulus in his edicts, and by Curio the father, in his orations. Cicero likewise seems to hint at this in a letter to Axius, where he says that Caesar had in his consulship secured to himself that arbitrary power to which he had aspired when he was aedile. Tanucius adds that Crassus, from remorse or fear, did not appear upon the day appointed for the massacre of the Senate. For this reason, Caesar omitted to give the signal, which, according to the plan concerted between them, he was to have made. The agreement, Curio says, was that he should shake off the toga from his shoulder. We have the authority of the same Curio, and of M. Actorius Naso, for his having been likewise concerned in another conspiracy with young Cneius Piso, to whom, upon a suspicion of some mischief being meditated in the city, the province of Spain was decreed out of the regular course. It is said to have been agreed between them that Piso should head a revolt in the provinces, whilst the other should attempt to stir up an insurrection at Rome, using as their instruments the Lambrani and the tribes beyond the Po. However, the execution of this design was frustrated in both quarters by the death of Piso. In his aedileship, he not only embellished the Comitium and the rest of the Forum with the adjoining halls, but adorned the Capitol also with temporary piazzas, constructed to display some part of the superabundant collections he had made for the amusement of the people. He entertained them with the hunting of wild beasts, and with games, both alone and in conjunction with his colleague. On this account, he obtained the whole credit of the expense to which they had jointly contributed, insomuch that his colleague, Marcus Bibulus, could not forbear remarking that he was served in the manner of Pollux. For as the temple erected in the Forum to the two brothers went by the name of Castor alone, so his and Caesar's joint munificence was imputed to the latter only. To the other public spectacles exhibited to the people, Caesar added a fight of gladiators, but with fewer pairs of combatants than he had intended, for he had collected from all parts so great a company of them, that his enemies became alarmed, and a decree was made restricting the number of gladiators that anyone was allowed to retain at Rome. Having thus conciliated popular favor, he endeavored, through his interest with some of the tribunes, to get Egypt assigned to him as a province by an act of the people. The pretext alleged for creating this extraordinary government was that the Alexandrians had violently expelled their king, whom the Senate had complimented with the title of an ally and friend of the Roman people. This was generally resented, but notwithstanding, there was so much opposition from the faction of the nobles that he could not carry his point. In order, therefore, to diminish their influence by every means in his power, he restored the trophies erected in honor of Caius Marius, on account of his victories over Jugurtha, the Cimbri, and the Teutoni, which had been demolished by Sylla. When sitting in judgment upon murderers, he treated those as assassins, who, in the late prescription, had received money from the treasury for bringing in the heads of Roman citizens. However, they were expressly accepted in the Cornelian laws.